Hi, welcome back to another episode of Real-World Serverless, where I speak with real-world practitioners and get their stories from the trenches. Today, I'm joined by Marcelo Advice, who's the CTO at TikD. Hey, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jan. Appreciate you doing this.
And yeah, thank you for for taking the time to talk to us. So to get us started, can you tell us a bit about your journey to serverless and who is TikD? What do you guys do there?
Yeah, absolutely. So my journey to serverless, I started like about I would say three, maybe 4 years ago, where I was working at a company that got acquired by a big company, and we were doing a lot of Kubernetes stuff. And at that moment in time, because when we got absorbed by the big company, uh, compliance didn't allow any type of Docker or any type of Kubernetes, but they did allow anything that was related to CloudFormation or anything like that. So, it was a big change for us. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we end up doing is see if we can leverage a lot of the stuff that we end doing, all the services, but, we didn't want to deal with like the whole architecture. So that's when we stumbled upon, serverless and the serverless framework. The serverless framework was great because it was allowing me to create all these applications using CloudFormation and all the resources that it has available. So like that's how we started it. But initially, it was just because of the fact that we just needed something in CloudFormation.
Tell us a bit about TikD. What is TikD? What do you guys do there?
So TikD is a software as a service for citations. We cover different types of citations, whether it's parking, cameras, and tolls. And we have different integrations all over the United States. And currently, we have two products. One of them is kind of like an on-demand product, and another one is a subscription. So subscription will work great for like big fleets. Just imagine something like DHL or Amazon Prime, where they have a big fleet and they just need to find out if there are any citation on those vehicles. Like that, they avoid, you know, late fees or even, getting those vehicles towed. And the other one is, like I said, it's on demand. And this is specifically great for companies that are doing any type of rental. So say, for example, if you end up renting a vehicle and, you reserve it for like about a week, uh, at the same time, we want to make sure that we scan during that time, during that interval time, to see if there's any citations. And if there are any citations, then we contact you to see if you can pay that citation. So that's what we do in Tint.
So was the TikD platform built with serverless from the ground up?
Absolutely, yeah. Take this 100% serverless. We don't have any type of applications running at all. Everything is serverless, and we did it with the purpose of like just making sure that we move extremely quick, and at the same time, we reduce the amount of maintenance that we end up doing in the platform. So yeah, it's 100% serverless.
So that's great. And so with serverless being a really big departure from how we are used to building software, what has been the most challenging adaptation for you so far?
I think the biggest adaptation or maybe learning curve that we have is the fact that you have to automatically start thinking more asynchronous and more reactive, and because of that, it's a different paradigm, right? I think that the fact is that serverless automatically put you in the path of thinking about microservices, thinking about short time live functions, and at the same time reactive functions. So I think that has been the biggest learning curve, especially from junior and mid-level developers, that they don't have a good grasp on those subject matter.
So as you build this brand new platform with this brand new technology, forcing you to think about microservices and event-driven architectures, has there been anything that hasn't just quite worked out that you thought, okay, now this should be a lot simpler. Why is it so difficult?
Yeah, I think that the biggest challenge that we're having right now is integration tests. I think that just like you mentioned, especially right now that we have an event store, having having these integration tests or end-to-end tests is very difficult, especially when you have an event-driven architecture like you mentioned. It's time and time again, the guys are telling me like, oh, or tests are failing because, we haven't gotten the results in the event store. So those are the things that I believe that uh, it's not that it's a pain right now, but I think later on it's going to get better, especially in the testing side as well as the event-driven.
It's funny that you mentioned the testing side of things because that's something I've heard quite a lot of people talk about it being a struggle. So, with that in mind, do you design your applications differently to make them more testable? Is there anything that you're doing that's different to how you used to do things, just so that you can test your system better when they are in serverless?
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that I really like about your classes is the fact that you end up introducing the return on investment that you end up getting, especially for when it comes to end-to-end uh, integrations and then unit testing, right? Yeah, the higher level that you go, the more return on investment. So therefore, if you do a end-to-end test, you end up getting a higher return on investment rather than say, for example, unit tests. So one of the things that I always tell my developers is, you know, let's focus first on the end-to-end test. Most of the time, back in the days, a lot of the developers just think about the unit tests. I'm not saying that unit tests are not important, but I try to let them know and emphasize the fact that if we end up having a better grasp with end-to-end tests, uh, the quality of our product will be a lot higher. So that's something that I emphasize not only to my developers but also in the code reviews.
Okay, so maybe can you tell us some of the things, specific feature that you've built with serverless that makes you think, oh wow, okay, now I would never have done this so quickly if I was building this with EC2 instances or with containers.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many things that we can say that. For starters, like I remember going in a meeting when we first started Tech, and my co-founder and we went to a meeting in LA, and we didn't have a product at that moment in time, but one of the customers says, if you can find a solution to be able to do this, and you can present it over to me, um, I can totally give you my entire fleet. And that was in LA. So we're in Miami. So that flight from LA to Miami, I was able to connect to the internet, and I was able to get a prototype working all in serverless within a couple of hours. And it was functioning. It was by the time that I landed in Miami, I was able to just develop a prototype for our customer. And that was, to me, that's when I knew that we would never go back to anything else.
Yeah, I always love to hear these kind of stories of how it really helps people accelerate and get things going. So, do you have any advice to people who are building a startup and they're thinking about serverless, or maybe they have already started? What are some of the advice you would have for someone, maybe even a younger version of yourself that you know today that you wish you knew 3 years ago?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I always tell people is that is the maintenance part. A lot of people just get complacent with the fact that, I already know, Docker. I invested so much time learning Docker. I also invested a lot of time learning this other tool called Kubernetes, or maybe I just put a lot of effort and time into Istio and Kubernetes. And one of the things that I keep telling people is that they always tend to forget the cost around maintenance. Maintenance is not just around the cost of the resources, but it's maintaining and caring for that particular infrastructure. That is something that a lot of people don't put very emphasis. So one of the things that I always tell people is, you know what, just give it a shot, especially for any green project. Try to see if you can end up doing something with serverless. Just start off and see if you can just do that, and just do a kind of like a small little prototype for maybe like about a month and see how you like it. Most of the time that people end up doing that, they really, really like that. The other thing that I always tell people is that this is clearly not a silver bullet, but it's also um, a good use case for a lot of things. And that's something that I always mention that to everyone.
I think that is, yeah, that's a good point about the sunk cost fallacy that we've invested so much time into learning containers and all of that, and now we have to learn another thing. And also, I mean, serverless is great, but there are certain things you could do better yourself with containers with a lot more effort, whereas it's almost, it's much difficult to do with a black box like Lambda. But at the same time, for the vast majority of people, you probably just don't need some of the extra bells and whistles that comes with stuff that you have to build and maintain and run yourself. There's a massive cost overhead there. And I think another common mistakes I see people when they consider the cost of your application is that they only look at the AWS build and they see, okay, well, with Lambda at some hundreds of requests per second, it's actually more expensive to run them on Lambda versus to just put a container out there and run your application on that. But then you're not really thinking about the fact that, okay, if you've got to run this scalable containerized application, you need to have people with the experience to run that and do it well and to be able to deal with issues. And the fact that if you want to run multi-AZ, you're not running one container, you're running at least three. And if you do multi-region, then you're running 12 containers, even in 4 regions, right? So all of a sudden your costs start to wrap up pretty quickly. And when you consider that you need to have expertise, you need to hire people to look after your containerized environment and to build your Kubernetes cluster and maintain that. I mean, that is way more expensive compared to just using Lambda and pay, I don't know, $500 per month extra compared to what you pay for containers. But you're going to save so much more in terms of not having to hire those specialist skills into your team until such a point that you need someone who's more specialized and be able to take you to the next level. Especially for startups, some of that cost trade-off between infrastructure versus engineering is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the cost is incredibly big. And a lot of people don't think about that. And I think, like I said, I feel like a lot of people end up becoming enamored just because of the fact that you already know your tool, right? Or there's a big community around it, or there's a big hype about it. The other thing that I will say is that, even though we have really large customers, really big customers, and we have, a large fleet, we are over, 15,000 vehicles right now that we monitor, just a big, big, big fleet. And we do monitor that, on an everyday basis. Our whole team is composed of five people. So that is extremely low, doing, all type of integrations, not only with our customers, but also with all the different providers that we have. The other thing that I really end up enjoying is the fact that, and I know that this is something that a lot of people end up talking to me, is the fact that they feel that I am locked in, right? I'm locked in with my provider. And I always tell people that that is not a bad thing. Just to give you an idea, right? Just really quick. The other day, one of the things that we end up having is we end up having one of our biggest customer end up getting a huge amount of citation in paper. So one of the things that we end up providing is one of those. I don't know. Have you used the SFTP transfer that is used by AWS?
Is that the one with S3?
The SFTP, this SFTP transfer service that AWS has.
Okay, no, I haven't used it.
Well, so just to give you an idea, we created a service, an SFTP service provided by AWS, and then at the same time, they're able to not only use the SFTP to upload all those images or scan images of citation, but then we can end up using text extract to basically get all the text from all the citations, put them into our database, and be able to just associate, like the partners, as well as, the issue date, the cost, and even to find out if that citation belongs to a particular renter. So again, the fact is that, and we did that in less than a day, just because of the fact that we try to leverage, the provider services. And the only thing that we do with serverless is basically just kind of like the glue for like or particular business flow and leveraging the services that they have. So we try to avoid recreating the wheel. So I don't think locked in is a bad thing.
Yeah, the other side, I guess the other side of the coin for this lock-in, well, I hate the term lock-in because you never really lock in anyway. There's always a way out. It's more of a question of the amount of coupling you incur and therefore the cost of moving. But the other side of that coin is that the more coupled you are, that means that the more value you're able to extract from the provider because they're going to do way more for you. And any technology choice that you make, you are essentially creating coupling, to Node.js to Express framework. I've seen companies spend 2 years trying to get out of a web framework because all their code is so interweave into the framework, they can't extract any of the business logic out of it. So, and also you're also just getting locked in, if you like, with the expertise you have in the team as well, right? So if you've got a containerized environment, you are coupled to having those skills. And if you're using private cloud provider, you're locked into the skills that they offer you as well. So also, I don't know, this whole lock-in argument just drives me nuts. um, so
Yeah, I know, I know.
so, I mean, all these things that AWS gives us, serverless give us is great. But are there any sort of platform limitations or tooling challenges that you find, you're constantly bumping into on a day-to-day basis?
You know, I wish I can say that, but the one thing that I always tell people is that whenever I end up using any type of open source, I always look into the community, and that's something that I really like about the serverless community. Uh, I have end up having some challenges, but nothing has been completely affected. In other words, the community usually helps me out, whether it's finding a workaround or being able to find a solution. So nothing big, major. We do end up stumbling on some problems, but nothing big. Even like I said, one of my biggest pet peeves right now is the fact of the testing. And that's the only thing that we've been having, but nothing major.
Okay, sounds like you're a very happy AWS customer, which is good to hear. So with that said, do you have any sort of AWS wish list item that maybe new features or new services that you wish that they would build?
You know, there not that I can think of right at the moment, because it's I wish I could say that there's one thing, because I believe that they're getting themselves in there. I mean, it's definitely easier. I mean, for us, like I said, most of the stuff that we end up doing is software as a service, so we do end up leveraging a lot of integration. So all of that is being very well done. The one thing that I probably will ask is again on the testing locally. That will be something that we would love to have and would love to receive, or being able to end up doing a little bit better testing with the end to end. I think that would be really good.
Okay, that's great. I hope someone from AWS is listening and taking notes. Well, before we go, is there anything else that you'd like to tell the listener, maybe about yourself, anything you're working on, maybe tech is hiring?
Yeah, right now because of the whole pandemic, obviously things are challenging and there's a lot of unknowns. But at the very beginning, we're still working with a lot of people. We still, we did had a couple of positions available at the very beginning. Right now, uh, we basically end up setting the pause button on those. But at the moment that I think that the pandemic end up finalizing, we're probably going to end up rehiring people. Um, yeah, like I said, we manage a large amount of customers, big customers, and we're growing tremendously. One of the things that we're trying to do is expand internationally. Some of my customers, they want us to go to Canada, also UK. I know that's where you are, yeah, and also France. So that's something those are other markets that we're looking into very carefully.
Okay, and how can people find you on the internet, on Twitter, on social media, or maybe do you have a blog?
Yeah, so you can always find me in LinkedIn, Marcelo Olivas, or you can reach me at Marcelo, Marcelo, at Tikt, and that's at TIKD.com. You can always reach me there. I'm also in LinkedIn and Twitter, MF Olivas, that's my Twitter handle.
Okay, great. I will leave those information in the show notes. And once again, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. And stay safe, stay home, take care.
Yes, will do. You too, Jan. Thank you
Okay,
so much for doing this.
okay, bye bye.
Bye.
So that's it for another episode of Real World Serverless. To access the show notes, please go to realworldserverless.com. If you want to learn how to build production-ready serverless applications, please check out my upcoming courses at productionreadyserverless.com. And I'll see you guys next time.